Welcome back. You're watching Signature Television. This is Signature Morning, and you know you can always follow us on all social media platforms. Always, there for you. Signature TV News on all social media platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and would love to always hear from you on all our topics on this platform. All right, we're switching gears to some other discussions as it relates to environment. We're talking environmental safeguard policies in Nigeria. We have on Zoom our guest, Dr. Haruna Manu Isa. Is an environmental specialist. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Haruna, can you hear me?
Good morning, Mr. Haruna.
Hello, Haruna. Can you hear me? Haruna, I can't hear you. Can you maybe unmute your mic? Mr. Haruna, can you please unmute your microphone if you can? Okay, so we're having a bit of an issue with that connection. I really want to know what's environmental safety policies. So, of course, safeguards.
Like it sounds,
Yes,
environmental.
safeguard. So,
Yeah.
what are we safeguarding? Safeguarding the environment. How are we safeguarding the environment? What should we be doing to
It
safeguard the
should be
environment?
those policies, kept in place or put in place to make sure that the environment is safe.
Okay.
For the citizens.
What are the policies?
It could
Have an
be
idea?
clean energy. It could be, removing of, regulating the outpour of waste into the water, into the stream, and of course, land pollution. Regulating all those things to make sure that the environment is being kept safe.
Yeah, fantastic. Really. Now that you put it that way, so many persons don't really know how this environmental thing works. When you hear climate, it sounds so faluting.
Far away,
You
yeah.
know, you feel that it's something that is affecting people abroad or maybe people far away from here. But climate change affects virtually everybody, and
Hello,
it
can you hear me now?
is caused by human actions.
Hello.
All right, I think our guests have joined us. Dr. Haruna Manu Isa, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Okay, Dr. Haruna, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so
Good
much,
morning.
Signature TV. Thank you for having me on board.
Thank you so much. I'm just straight to it. What is this environmental safeguards policies in Nigeria? What is it about?
Okay, thank you very much, Signature TV, for having me this morning. Environmental safeguard policies are a set of policies that are aimed to promote sustainable development. Are you with me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Okay. Environmental safeguard are a set of policies or principles that are aimed at promoting sustainable development. Let me give you a brief overview. You see, before now, there have been several school of thought in the environmental management sector. There were some that believed that development should continue irrespective of the impact. That's the economic point of view, the development economic point of view. There are some that believe that development should not even take place at all in favor of the environment. Therefore, environmental safeguards come into play to promote sustainable development, where development is considering environmental impact, social inclusiveness, and economic development. So these environmental policies have been promoted by development partners, especially the World Bank, are geared towards sustainable development. Are you with me?
Yes.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
You are with me, right? So that is the background. There is need to promote sustainable development. There is need to address issues of climate change. There is need to develop according to the tenet of environmental sustainability. Now, going back a little bit, in 2018, there was this ESF, Environmental and Social Framework, developed and approved by the World Bank. This aligns to a larger extent, to a great extent, to best practices, where the World Bank promoted or initiated these policies to bring about sustainable development in the project development, from planning to implementation down to project decommissioning. Now, this ESS, what we call ESS now, the right term will have been environmental and social safeguard policies. That's now the new, that's now the paradigm, not environmental safeguard alone, but environmental and social safeguard. Because downplaying the social component of the environment have led to serious impact within project development cycles. Therefore, I would like to enumerate this standard. You know, there are a set of standards that guide project conception, development, design, and implementation. There are 10 of them. Number one, we have the environmental and social risk assessment and management. What this specifies is that all projects need to pass through certain risk assessment, because there is no project that does not have any risks. The only difference is that whether it's high category risks or low category risks. And so many projects in Nigeria have been developed with due considerations to these issues before now, but the World Bank came into play to further highlight, to emphasize, because one thing with Nigeria, let me tell you some problems we have in this country. We have the laws. We have fantastic laws in this country about environmental policies, fantastic laws. But our challenge is enforcement. How do you enforce these laws so that they will become relevant to our development process? They become so highlighted to the extent that everyone will be aware that if you are going to conceive a project, you need to pass through A, B, C, D, and E, up to the last ESS. The first ESS, as I said, is the environmental and social assessment. The second one is labor and working conditions. These are best practices. These are global best practices. It is not about Nigeria. It is not about US. It's not about England. It's not about Ghana. No, it's about global best practices. Climate change is a global reality, and the impact are also day in, day out reality. We cannot continue to keep denying that climate change is just utopia. No, it's a reality. So this standard were brought into development conception of project to address these issues. As I said, the second one is labor and working conditions. All projects are to be implemented by human beings. And remember, development nowadays are human-centered. If people are going to be involved in the implementation or development of project, then there should be certain principles that would guide and support these workers on site. I was on the site yesterday, and I was asking the contractor, please provide us with a labor camp management plan addressing all the issues that were there, so that these people can also feel, yes, they are also humans, because development is human-centered. Nigeria cannot avoid to be excluded in this development process. The third one is community health and safety. Community health and safety. This community health and safety, of course, project will pass through certain communities. And Nigeria, as a developing nation, we have so many settlements, so many communities that projects are passing across. This project, as by design, they have what you call footprint. It could be positive, it could be negative footprint. Therefore, this principle of community health and safety is geared towards protecting community health in terms of traffic, in terms of water resources. If your project is going to impact water resource, of course, you need to put in some measures to address that. The fourth one is that we have is resource use and efficiency. How do you utilize resources efficiently in Nigeria? How do you do that? The safeguard standard, the standard has already initiated or have already captured that adequately, that if we implement it in our development process, we are not going to have issues in terms of resource utilization or conservation. Are we together?
Yes, we are.
So, can you go ahead to mention those environmental policies? You mentioned also the social part. Can you mention those environmental and social policies that are meant to be in place for Nigeria right now, and which government agencies are supposed responsible for implementing them?
Yes. The fifth one is land acquisition, restriction, and involuntary resettlement. This is a social standard. It is required by this particular standard that any project that is going to involve some land acquisition or voluntary or involuntary land acquisition, then this standard should apply. Meaning, if you are going to have a project that will involve displacement of people, people are going to be resettled. That project, by requirement of this ESS, is to prepare what you call resettlement action plan. Let me tell you a story. Something happened in my area. A linear project, I don't want to mention the project, it's a linear project cutting across states and countries. It came through my community, and EIA was prepared. And in the approval letter of the EIA, that project was asked to go and prepare a resettlement action plan, because the Federal Ministry of Environment observed that that project involved large-scale land acquisition. Large-scale land acquisition. If a project is going to involve large-scale land acquisition, in fact, any displacement of any matter, whether it's livelihood, whether it's physical displacement, then a resettlement action plan needs to be prepared. That's the standard that's the social standard that need to be fulfilled. Now, in my area, the case study I'm giving you, in my area, when the project came, we asked them for all this documentation that, look, of course, we support the project. We are in so much need of this project, but please, let's see the resettlement action plan, accommodating the wishes and aspirations of people that are going to be affected. The RAP or resettlement action plan will have accommodated all these issues, period to project implementation. One thing I need to mention, that these plans are supposed to be prepared period to project implementation. From design stage, the proponent of a project must have forecasted that this project is a category A project or B project or C project, and it will involve this level of land acquisition. Therefore, they are going to prepare this kind of safeguard instrument. The safeguard instruments are meant to protect people, environment, and the future generation. So now let me go back to the case that I was giving you. This project came, it was a Loudoun project, but they failed to do this proper documentation, meaning there was no resettlement action plan. People that were to be affected were not taken into consideration. Probably no census was taken to know the number of people that will be affected. Probably the assets that are going to be affected were not taken into consideration. The plot of land or houses were not taken into consideration. Then how are you going to carry out a project like that? So that's how we were able to save a community of more than 500 households from that disaster. I call it disaster because it's a project well conceived, but without human face. A project well conceived without human face. This is not the new development paradigm shift now. The paradigm shift is that development should be people-centered. If you are going to do anything in the environment, people should be considered first, because the aim of the project is not to leave the people impoverished. It's not to impoverish the people. Rather, is to leave the people better than they were. We have several cases in this country where projects come into communities, but they leave them highly impoverished. They leave them highly impoverished, dispossessing them of their land, of their properties, of their livelihood. This is not the development pattern of the new millennium. This is not the development pattern of the new millennium. The new Millennium Development Pattern is the one that put human being at the center of development. So we're able to challenge that project to the extent that we ask them to do the right thing. Let people, wishes, and aspirations be considered. Take the asset into consideration. This is ESS 5. I don't know whether I'm making any sense. This is ESS 5.
Yes, yes, you are.
I don't know whether, are you with me?
Yes, we are with you.
Very good. So this is the new development pattern, that any project that is coming into community must have some human face. Unlike what used to happen some years back, where project will be conceived, designed, developed in somewhere in Abuja or in somebody's office without taking the people felt need. So environmental standard or environmental assurance standards are designed to take the felt need of the people into consideration. I'm moving to ESS 6, which is the biodiversity. Biodiversity. We have a lot of biodiversity in our environment, and applying ESS standard, environmental assurance standard, into development, into project development and conception and development will conserve biodiversity. Remember, we are talking about mitigating climate change, avoiding biodiversity loss. And another fundamental thing you need to know is that now in the global arena, if a country is seen to be negligent of environmental tenets, that country will not be supported. There are some support that country will not get from donor agencies. Okay? There are some support that country may not get from some donor agencies. In fact, large number of them may not support that country. That is why environment now is like the driving force around development objectives. Number 7 that we need to consider is indigenous people. That is the ESS 7. Indigenous people need to be considered in development projects. There are some projects that will come into communities where indigenous people are located, are already habituating that environment. So you cannot come and start dislocating them without considering the indigenous beliefs. What are their beliefs? What are their customs and costumes? What are the things they value before you start your project? That's ESS 7. That's the environmental standard 7. ESS 8 is cultural heritage. Cultural heritage. Cultural heritage, wherever a project is going to pass through, whether linear or non-linear project, it is expected that the cultural heritage, the cultural values of that community must be taken into consideration. A lot of studies will be conducted. Sometimes you need experts. Each of these ESS that I have mentioned from 1 to 8 now may require some expert input. Sometimes you need to invite archaeologists, sometimes you need to invite historians to prepare detailed studies on these issues we are talking about. Then ESS 9, let me quickly rush to ESS 9, that financial intermediaries. Sometimes development project will pass through some financial intermediaries in Nigeria. For example, a World Bank or African Development may intend to support or finance a project, but that project fund will be routed through other banks in Nigeria. So these banks, by default, are expected, and by the virtue of this ESS 8, ESS 9, are expected to apply all these ESS 1 to 9. Okay? This is the standard globally. This is the standard globally. And Nigeria cannot afford to be excluded in the global event of environmental drive. ESS 10, which is the last one, is stakeholder engagement and public disclosure. Let me digress a little bit. ESS 1, ESS 2, and ESS 10, to a large extent, they apply across all projects, because ESS 1 talks about E&S risk assessment. ESS 2 talk about labor and working conditions. That is mean any project that you're going to have in the community must consider the people that are going to work in that project, and also must emphasize child labor. Okay, there is no law that promotes child labor. So that condition
Right.
must be clearly spelled out in the project document. Then ESS 10, which is public stakeholder engagement and public disclosure. That is to say, everything about a project must be clearly, sufficiently, adequately disclosed to the people and to all stakeholders. That is why, if you observe, most EIAs must undergo public. If you don't disclose any instrument, if you don't disclose any ESS instrument, it totally means that instrument is null and void. People must be aware of the instrument, must be given the opportunity to make input, and their input must be taken into consideration. That is ESS 10. So this requirement is applicable across all projects, whether it's a high-risk project, whether it's a low-risk project, whether it's a medium-risk project, the people need to be carried along. Let me tell you the relevance of all these ESS. You see, as it is today in Nigeria, there are so many projects that are taking place in communities without this, and largely because of our system. As I said earlier, we have fantastic environmental laws in Nigeria. Fantastic. But we have challenges. The challenges we have are basically around enforcement and compliance. Then another one is poor public awareness. People sometimes, most at times, people are not aware of their environmental and social human rights. Okay? People are not aware of this. They are not aware that they have the right to a good environment. They are not aware that they have a right to quality air. They are not aware that they have a right to quality drinking water. So any project that will tamper with this, you have every right to ask questions. You are bringing this project.
All right.
Is it in compliance with the ESS standard? Is it in compliance with any environmental safeguards standard? Because we have them on ground. What the World Bank has done, as I always say, is to re-engineer them, refocus them, and bring them to the front burner. Now, before any project is approved by any development institution or any development partner, that project must be screened through this ESS 1 to 10. African Development Bank recently, they have also internalized this ESS 1 to 10. Other development partners across the globe are also internalizing this development, this ESS into their development objectives. Meaning, any project that is coming into play in any community, before it gets their approval, it must pass through this instrument. Where a project requires ESS 1, that ESS 1 must be seen to be prepared to the end, and it must be seen to be implemented to the letter.
But I'm just wondering, how is necessary enforcing compliance with Nigerians' environmental safeguard policies? How are they, enforcing their compliance?
Yes, necessary. They are supposed to be in the driver's seat in terms of enforcement. But unfortunately, this is very, very unfortunate. I don't know whether they lack capacity, but the enforcement is inadequate. Next year, they have about 13 to 14 regulations. As of the last time I checked, they have about 13 to 14 regulations as of the last time I checked. Okay? But you'll be surprised that you can be on a site for 3 to 4, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, without seeing one Nasiriya official. And not only Nasiriya, there are other regulatory agencies that are also involved in this enforcement of environmental safeguard policies. We have the EHECON. EHECON is Environmental Health Council of Nigeria, which are mandated by law to protect the health of the environment. Okay, they have a law governing their practice, governing their operations. Nasiriya, they have about 13 to 14 regulations to enforce. In addition to the EIA Act that we have in this country, from 1998 to 1992, and EIA Act as amended in 2004. So all these are supposed to guide the operations of the project, and not only project, operations of corporate bodies in our environment. But, I don't know what is happening. Actually, Nasiriya, they are trying. they need to double their effort.
Mm.
They need to, not even double, they need to triple their effort. Because Nigeria is growing day in, day out. We have urbanization, expansion of cities, expansion of settlement, development are coming into this country every day. But the enforcement arm of government is inadequate. Actually, Nasiriyah and other regulatory bodies, they need to sit up to this challenge for us to achieve the sustainable development goals that we so much cherish.
All right. What are the challenges facing the environmental safeguard policies in Nigeria?
Yeah, the challenges are many. Yes, the challenges are many, but the key challenges I have identified are basically three. One, inadequate enforcement. Inadequate enforcement is a key challenge. Two, lack of public awareness. People are not aware that they can have input into development projects. People are not aware. People always assume that one is a government project, that project must take place willy-nilly. That project must take place irrespective of the impact, irrespective of the wishes and aspirations of the people. This is not correct. So people need to be enlightened. Number three, corporate bodies, they have this disposition not to comply. And this basically takes its root from lack of enforcement. So these three challenges in Nigeria, until we address these three challenges, enforcement, public awareness, then corporate bodies should be aware that they need to comply. That's attitudinal change. But our problem in Nigeria is not about laws. I always say this. We don't have problem of laws. We don't have problem of policies. We have fantastic policies. We have fantastic laws, regulation frameworks. But the problem lies in enforcement. And without enforcement, you are going to have poor implementation or improper implementation. And without this, then we are left with the negative consequences of development.
So whose role is it, for raising awareness to the public about what's happening concerning the environment and social welfare?
Sorry, I didn't get you, sorry.
Whose role is it, to educate the public about what's happening concerning the environmental and social welfare?
Okay, yeah. Well, we have agencies of government that are responsible for public awareness, like the National Orientation Agency. Nasiriyah itself, they have a mandate. Mass media, as we are doing now, you have a mandate to sensitize the public that, look, you have inalienable right to know what's happening in any project coming to your community. And you have also an equal right to have an input into the project. Because gone are the days where development proponent, the proponent of project, will divorce project objectives with the communities. These projects are going to take place on land occupied by human beings, by flora and fauna, human beings and all other living and non-living things. So when you sit down in an office and develop a project without considering where the project is going to be located, is a modern aberration. It is not condoned in development practice anywhere in the world. And this practice should be discarded. We should try to bring about a paradigm shift, a change in the way we conceive project, the way we design project, the way we implement project in this country. Are we together?
Yes, of course. I was just going to ask, we're just almost done, but just in 1 minute, I just want to ask you, how does Nigeria's safeguard policies align with international standards?
Okay, if I get you, you're asking, how does Nigerian safeguard policy align with international standards?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
That's what
as I said earlier, we don't have problems of laws. We don't have problems of policies. Let me tell you for free, we have very good policy documents. We have very good regulations. We may not have everything that is required, There are some laxities here and there in terms of regulations development, but we have the regulations. Okay, and if you look at the ESS of the World Bank, which is the global standard from 1 to 10, we all have supporting regulations that promote this ESS. We all have them. If you talk about ESS 1, we have the EIA Act. Okay, we have the EIA Act. If you talk about ESS 2, we have the Occupational Health and Safety Policy in Nigeria. Okay, if you talk about ESD on biodiversity, we have the climate change policy. If you talk about the waste, we have national waste policy, solid waste management policy. So we have laws, we have policies, but where we are lacking is in the area of enforcement, compliance, and public awareness. Because when promoters of projects know that people are not aware, they will do anything they want. So people need to be conscientized. People need to know that, look, these are the basic things that are required in any project. For ESS 1, ESS 10, check which one of these is triggered by a project. Then you push it for implementation. Then everybody will go home safe.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Haruna Manu is an environmental specialist. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, Signature TV.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, quite an insightful discussion with Dr. Garba there. Haruna Manu is giving us insights into environmental safeguards, what it really is, and how we are involved in all of these. It's all about climate change. And remember, it's about what you do also in your locality. You'll be shocked at the stuff that you do that affects climate. I mean, human beings are the ones that are spoiling climate. You know, I urge you to read up on it even further so as to find out how you can protect the climate even as you go about your daily routine.